All right, we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to do a bit of commentary over a replay of a game from earlier today. This is game 3 against a very energy-forward blue-white control list, running Tune the Narratives, Wrath of the Skies in the main board, probably 6 to 8 forces. There was certainly force negation in the first game. So yeah, pretty hard matchup for Storm. Now, I got absolutely clicked in game 1, as you would expect. He has a lot of interaction. He has main deck Wrath of the Skies, and so I have a hard time rebuilding after the first thing gets forced. I then get him in game 2 by landing a Hexing Squelcher and then just beating him with my 2/2 Goblin and Construct token. He had told me he took out his Swords to Plowshares, which I don't know is necessarily correct. If you've still got Breath of the Skies, maybe you take it out, but he died to not being able to interact with what I was doing. And that's going to really inform how he plays in game 3. So there's some interesting things to look at here. We've got a little bit of emotional meddling mage action going on, as we'll see. Which I think it was probably a bit of a misplay on his part. But what is more interesting about this game is we're going to get to turn 6, and it's going to be absolutely dreadful for me. The board state is going to collapse in such a catastrophic fashion that it looks like it's going to be impossible to rebuild. But this is one of those call an ambulance, but not for me moments that we get to experience from time to time. Let's take a look and let's see how it went down. So he starts on the play. He's going to go Island into Tamiyo. Let's slow down the rate of play here. I keep a hand that has... the initial piece of interaction was the Thoughtseize, but then I draw the Duress. So that's really good. We'll start with the Duress. I kind of regretted starting with the Duress when I saw his hand because he had Meddling Mage in it, which I would have loved to have taken. But I take the Force of Will, so I know that I'm working against. He's going to turn 2 Meddling Mage me, and then he's got a Stifle. And so I need to build a plan on my Urza's Sagas around that Stifle. And that plan is probably going to be Thoughtseize. Doesn't actually play out like that. As we're going to find out, but keep going. So opponent's going to play their planes and play their Meddling Mage. And this is the first emotional moment of the game. They have chosen Hexing Squelcher, probably because of how game 2 went. This is not recommended in basically any situation. Don't Meddling Mage the Hexing Squelcher. But let's keep going. We're going to attack with Tamiyo, and let's proceed. So we draw LED. Let's play our first Urza's Saga and start progressing our game plan. I know because I've taken the Force of Will, I'm pretty safe to throw that Talisman down, and I can Thoughtseize next turn. He's going to get in. And then we're going to see the next emotional moment. He's going to Stifle Chapter 2 of my first Urza's Saga. That's so much better for me than Thoughtseizing, because then that lets me Thoughtseize a Spell Pierce out of his hand. So now I know now that I'm dealing with Flow State Force Negation. He cast the Flow State here, and I'm kind of free to just keep working on this Urza's Saga plan. So let's go ahead and Chapter 3, the first Urza's Saga. I'm going to go and get a second LED because right now my game plan is going to be revolving around having 2 LEDs on the field, activating my Wishclaw Talisman, going and getting an Infernal Tutor, which can then go and get Ad Nauseam. And the Ad Nauseam is going to be played off the 2 LEDs, which is going to leave 1 black mana floating after we add. That's the game plan for the moment. We're not going to actually enact that game plan because there's going to be some other obstacles in the way very shortly. But this is where my head is at this point. For this turn, we've got nothing much to do, so let's just make a token to stem the bleeding a little bit from this Meddling Mage. And then we've got our third sideboard card from our opponent coming out, it's the Deafening Silence. Now, I'd much rather see a Deafening Silence than something like a Stony Silence or a Null Rod. A Deafening Silence is much easier to deal with because I just need to bounce it and then kill them. It's much harder to bounce a Stony Silence or a Null Rod because this deck has 2 lands that produce blue. One of them enters tapped, where ordinarily I'm going to be producing blue off my artifacts, off Lotus Petals or my Mox Opals. It just makes it much more a narrow to thread when they've got a Null Rod or a Stony Silence. So I'm glad to see it's this and not the other one. Now we need to build a plan around the Deafening Silence. The Wishclaw Talisman is going to go get us our Boomerang Basics, which is our bounce spell. Let's go ahead and get Mox Opal to stabilize our mana a little bit. We know we need to get blue eventually, and I'm not relying on drawing one of the 12 lands left in my deck. 11 lands, there's 2 Sagas in the... And we are now in a lot of trouble. So his turn 6 is very good. Wrath of the Skies. I would have loved to have thought seized that Wrath of the Skies, but he got Force of Negation. So I know that probably shields are down at this point, but I'm going to lose a lot here. Lose this half of my board, and I'm going to be left with a Badlands and a Wishclaw Talisman. Looking at my hand, however, because you see we're going to use that Brainstorm that was in my hand. It's use it or lose it. I lose this blue mana. So let's just go ahead and brainstorm and see if we can form a plan. We see Dark Ritual, and then we've just paused at the point where I've put my 2 cards back. The third card that I saw was Gaia's Will. So we went ahead and put our Gaia's Will and the second Lotus Petal back on top of our library. And the plan now is untap, in my upkeep, activate Wishclaw Talisman to shuffle my library to go and get the Boomerang Basics. And then we need to draw a fetch land or our Underground Sea. That's our only out situation. Because then we can play our land, bounce the Deafening Silence, cast Lotus Petal, cast LED, Ritual, Beseech, sacking the LED to go and get Gaia's Will. Our graveyard is going to be stacked, and we will have generated a Million Storm, a whole bunch of mana, and we'll be able to kill him. So that's the plan. Let's see if we can pull it off. This point, 2 cards in hand. I know he's pretty shields down here. We get to do the thing. We play our Boomerang Basics off the Bloodstained Mire into Underground Sea, and now we can just go ham. So we go LED, Lotus Petal. We're going to go Ritual. Teach the Mirror, Gaia's Will, and our opponent scoops it up. Call an ambulance for him.